Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the president of Sri Lanka, resigned as a result of the widespread protests that occurred 2 months ago. This was due to the country's inability to purchase necessities like food, medicine, and fuel as the economic crisis worsened. It has so been dubbed a failed state by many, and yet Sri Lanka was heralded as an economic success story barely a decade ago. It appeared to be on the road to recovery after emerging from nearly 3 decades of civil strife. What transpired then? And more importantly, is there any hope of saving it now? Especially with Gotabaya suddenly returning to the country after 52 days? Hey folks, welcome back to Darkness Unraveled. In this video, we'll see the extent to which Sri Lanka has been thrown into chaos since President Gotabaya's departure. Let's dive in. Recently, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the ex-president of Sri Lanka who had gone on the run, arrived back in Colombo. Tensions in the already tense country could flare up again as a result of this decision. He has been keeping a low profile in the Maldives since fleeing the country on July 13. This was days after demonstrators broke into his official mansion, demanding his resignation over his management of the country's worst financial crisis in decades. In spite of domestic, economic, and political unrest, he has yet to provide an explanation for his recent trip to 3 Asian countries and his subsequent return. Some activists are now calling for criminal proceedings to be brought against Rajapaksa, but with his allies still in power, observers say this is highly improbable. Furthermore, it is yet unknown if his return to the 22 million-strong island nation will spark additional demonstrations. After brief visits to the Maldives, Singapore, and Thailand, analysts say Rajapaksa may be out of options for countries prepared to allow him to enter or stay. Also, his lavish lifestyle abroad, which includes a private jet, presidential suite, and security, has reportedly cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars. The broad disapproval of Rajapaksa in Sri Lanka is a dramatic reversal from the days when he was hailed as a warrior king leader for ending a decades-long civil conflict between the government and separatists. It would have been a major blow to his ego, said former Human Rights Commission commissioner and lawyer Ambika Satkunanathan of the deposed leader. Finding a place to live, even temporarily, proved to be extremely challenging for him. Attempting this was harder than he had anticipated. Once upon a time, this politician was held in the highest esteem. It's new for him to be responsible for his actions. So what exactly did Gotabaya do in those 52 days? Crossing international borders. It only takes about 90 minutes to fly from Colombo to Malé, the capital of the Maldives, so that's where Rajapaksa went first. Until former president and current parliament speaker Mohamed Nasheed intervened. His plane was not granted permission to land, according to a senior security official. A large number of Sri Lankans in Malé flocked to the streets to demonstrate against his visit. One side held by protesters said, "Throw him out here." Another said, "Dear Maldivian friends, please persuade your government not to safeguard criminals." When Rajapaksa finally left the archipelago, he was on a Saudia flight to Singapore that departed less than 48 hours later. On July 14, the Singaporean Ministry of Foreign Affairs reported that Rajapaksa had been granted permission to enter the country on a private visit. The Singaporean Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated, "He has not asked for refuge and neither has he been granted any asylum." After that, it was widely believed that Rajapaksa would visit Saudi Arabia, but that trip never happened. It's not entirely clear why, but some experts have pointed to a controversial 2020 Rajapaksa policy that mandated the cremation of Muslim victims of the COVID-19 virus as a possible explanation. According to a statement released by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, of which Saudi Arabia is a member, the practice was inconsistent with Islamic precepts. The OIC voiced its disapproval and urged respect for the Muslim faith's burial practice. Soon after, however, Rajapaksa reversed the policy but instituted another controversial rule that mandated the burial of Muslim victims at a secluded government site away from their families and without the performance of final religious rites. Rajapaksa formally submitted his resignation as president of Sri Lanka from Singapore. When he was accused of human rights crimes during his time as defense commander during Sri Lanka's 26-year civil war, he found himself the target of a possible criminal inquiry in the city-state. The International Truth and Justice Project filed a criminal complaint with the Attorney General of Singapore on July 23, demanding the immediate arrest of Rajapaksa. A UN report from 2011 detailed the violations committed by Sri Lankan government troops, including the deliberate shelling of residential areas, summary executions, rape, and the withholding of food and medicine from those in need. According to the report, as many as 40,000 civilians were killed. As the executive director of ITJP, Yasmin Sukasuka, explained, filing a claim in Singapore was extremely symbolic since it demonstrated that once Gotabaya lost his immunity of office, he is an equal before the law. However, it is unlikely that the former leader will be investigated for war crimes. The political elite will protect him, she claimed, and despite him escaping, the institutions and affiliations he relied upon are still intact. She also stated the protest movement was broken, afraid, and fractured from within. She continued, saying, "There is always hope that an intrepid civil society group would petition the court to initiate a case against him and that the Attorney General and police would back such an action." On the 11th of August, Gotabaya boarded a private jet in Singapore and flew to Bangkok, Thailand. A representative from the Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that the man had entered the country without a visa since he held a diplomatic passport valid for up to 90 days. The exiled leader, according to the spokesman, was only there for a short time and wasn't looking for political asylum. Prayut Chan-o-cha, Prime Minister of Thailand, said the ex-president had been urged to stay out of the public eye after receiving humanitarian permission to enter the country. His word is good on the promise that this is only a short-term arrangement. There was to be no traveling, no communicating, and no interaction. Sri Lanka's new president, Ranil Wickremesinghe, is a Rajapaksa loyalist, and there is growing pressure from the former leader's followers for him to be allowed a safe return home. According to a statement released by the family's Sri Lanka Bodhujana Peramuna political party, which has an absolute majority in parliament, former finance minister and Rajapaksa brother Basil Rajapaksa asked for security to allow his return on August 19, and so he did 2 weeks later on September 3rd. The next steps? By reaching a preliminary deal with the International Monetary Fund for a $2.9 billion loan on Thursday, Sri Lanka moved a step toward economic stabilization. By increasing tax revenue and replenishing foreign reserves, the 4-year plan would help stabilize the country that has experienced severe food, fuel, and medical supply shortages. However, analysts say it is unclear whether Rajapaksa's presence will inflame the situation in the country once again, as the IMF has not yet approved the loan and Sri Lanka faces a lengthy path to economic recovery. Since Wickremesinghe's inauguration on July 21, police have forcibly removed protesters from demonstration locations and arrested some of them on charges of vandalism and other offenses, despite widespread criticism from rights groups and opposition lawmakers. Human rights attorney Sat Kunanathan acknowledged, "There is obviously an element of dread. To what extent there will be subsequent demonstrations is uncertain. However, inflation is rising and the expense of living has not decreased." Rajapaksa's lavish lifestyle upon his return threatens to further inflame the situation, as millions of people in the country are currently unable to buy food or fuel. "This is what has my people protesting on the streets. The hypocrisy infuriates them to no end," said Sat Kunanathan. "Lack of accountability is unacceptable. Taking action against Gotabaya will demonstrate to the world and Sri Lanka that no one is immune to the rule of law." And that brings us to the end of the video. Feel free to let us know what you think about this video. And if you like this video, then please leave a like and subscribe to our channel for more amazing content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.